Thank you, thank you. Acrofest is here. I know some of you guys have already met some of your friends and old classmates and whatnot, so we're happy that they are here. We've got a couple of announcements before we get started. First, we would like to invite Melissa, our social vice president. Where is she? Yay, Melissa, there she is.
So next week is World Kindness Week. So get together with your Sensational 6 groups and sign up for a place to volunteer. You will get 15 points per group volunteer hour, and if you bring cans, you get 5 extra points per can. Document your volunteer experience through a short video, and the winning group will have their video posted on social media, and will also get a prize that will be announced November 15th at the Student Center.
And we still have time to make our Sensational 6-pick teams, right? Right, Melissa? We can still make our teams up? Yeah, so if you guys haven't made a team up for your Sensational 6, we would love for you to get one together. All right, now you know that every semester, at the beginning and at the end of the semester, we have our bookstore that is at the library at Meadows Gallery, correct? All right, so I believe we're going to try something different next semester. And so we have representatives from our university bookstore. We have Brent and Kale, and they want to just share something very briefly on our bookstore for next semester. So here they are. Let's give them a hand.
Good afternoon. We have been working really hard with the administration, staff, and faculty on campus to come up with a new program. And I have a quick question for you. How many of you have ever spent $350 on books in a semester? And we're in church. So we are going to try and eliminate that from ever happening again. So all of the $350, $400, $500, $600 semesters are out, and they're over with. They're no more. We have a program called our FIRST program, our fully inclusive rental subscription textbook program. We make it extremely easy for you all to go and get your books. You're going to go through registration. Once you get through registration, we will automatically get sent over your schedule with all of the books that you need in them. We're going to bag them up for you and have them in the Meadows Gallery for you at the beginning of the semester. So that weekend before school starts, you'll be able to walk in and grab your books and head to class. With everything that you need, whether that's a workbook, an access code, anything of that nature that you need for your class, you'll have it. It comes out to about $20 a credit hour. That's all. So total, it's $325 on average because you guys take a ton of classes here. So there's no more of the $350 semesters that are going to happen. Again, it's taken a lot of work and a lot of effort on all parts. Faculty had to turn in their textbook information way early. They've done a fantastic job of that. Administration has worked really hard. IT has worked really hard. And we're really excited to bring the program to try and bring down the cost for everybody. So we wanted to tell you a little bit of how it worked. It's super simple, so there's not much to say. You just go through your 7 steps. We get the information, and we'll come up with a big data for you guys to come pick them up before school starts. That also means that on the first day of class, I think the understanding from all faculty is that everybody has their books from square one. So you'll be able to walk into class and folks will be able to get to teaching day one with all of your books, which there's so much data that goes into the success rate of folks having books on the first day of school and how much that helps everybody. So again, we just wanted to give you a little information on what's been happening and how that's going to work next semester. Thank you all.
This is a rental program, right? This is a rental program?
So you'll take them, you'll go to class, and then you'll bring it back. And if it's an access code or workbook, you can use it just how you would normally use it. There's no difference there.
All right, thank you. That's great. All right. Glad you guys have come here. Are there any other announcements that need to be made that I forgot about? Some of you have asked about Acrofest tickets. Do students get in for free? What's that answer? No. Yeah, I don't think they do they? Yeah, sorry about that. If you need a loan, come see Dr. Perry. All right? Yeah, he's right there. If you need a loan to get in if you need a loan to get in Acrofest, come see me, please. I will be happy to give you a payday loan. All right, let's bow our heads. Father, thank you for giving us the opportunity to gather here for assembly. Thank you that we have our Acrofest teams here. Thank you for their safe journeys thus far. We ask that you bless the program that's going to happen Saturday night and all the things that they have put into preparation to get to this point. Thank you for our wonderful group of students. We ask that you continue to be with each one of our students here as they forge ahead and complete the semester. We ask that you be with our speaker today, and we ask that you be with us so that we can be receptive of the message. Again, thank you for this day of life, and we praise your name. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, today at this time, I would like to invite Dr. Cheryl Tay to come up and introduce our speaker.
Wow, it's really bright up here. So good afternoon, Southwestern. How's everyone doing? Hope you're doing great. Well, it's an honor and privilege for me today to introduce today's speaker, David Banks. He comes to us from Orlando, Florida, from the Adventist Health System, where he is the Executive Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer for the organization. David is a first-generation college graduate. Many of us in this room are also first-generation students. He worked his way through high school and college at Pacific Union College using loans and the generosity of many people and working very hard to graduate from Pacific Union College and then from the University of Maryland prior to joining Adventist Health Systems 24 years ago. David and his wife Janice have 2 daughters, grown daughters, and he's the youngest child in a family of 4 sisters. And this is the most important fact to me because I didn't totally confirm this with David, but I'm his favorite of the 4 sisters. So I'm very happy to introduce to you today my brother, David Banks.
So the truth is, we do have 4 sisters in the mix, and Cheryl was the sister who kept us all in line. So I don't know about you and your families, but if you have siblings, my sister, who's immediately older than I am, she and I would strategize to see how we could keep Sister Cheryl at bay, because when my parents were away, Cheryl liked to be in charge. So it's not surprising to me that she's here doing education and teaching future teachers, because she was trying to teach us the whole time as well. But it really is a pleasure to be with you here today. And I want to share just a few thoughts with you and talk to you a little bit about your credo. Now, I thought I was just buying a cup of coffee. That's all I really was trying to do. The Credo Coffee Shop in Orlando is kind of famous. It's famous for really good coffee. Now, I don't mean to offend anyone. I don't mean Starbucks burnt bean, put lots of whipped cream on it coffee. I'm talking about really good coffee. I walked in. It had all the trappings of an artisanal hipster coffee shop. Fill in that picture in your mind. It looked like it was decorated right out of the 1970s. Matter of fact, it looked like there was an estate sale of an elderly couple taking place in the lobby of the coffee shop, including their pictures. It looked like you just walked right back in, maybe to your grandparents' living room. I went up to the counter. The barista was behind the counter. She was ready to take my order. I noticed one other historical marker. She had her 10-speed bike behind the counter. It was the same bike I had been given as my 8th grade graduation present in 1978, although she had turned it into a fixed-gear single-speed bike. I started to feel maybe I was in the wrong spot. I don't know if you can tell by looking at me, I don't really fit into the hipster crowd. So I ordered my coffee, and then she immediately asked me, well, how much do you want to pay? I said, how much do I want to pay? Yeah, what do you think it's worth? What would be fair? Now, I wasn't here to play Price is Right. I was just trying to figure out what is fair. What does that even mean? She then, that proceeded to produce a conversation with us. We started to talk about coffee origins. We started to talk about what it means to have fair trade coffee. We started to talk about how what you pay for something actually has global impact. I thought I was just going to buy a cup of coffee, and I was getting a lesson on something I hadn't really anticipated. Matter of fact, she said, if you're really interested, the guy who runs this place is right behind you. His name is Ben. This is Ben. So I sat down with my coffee and I talked to Ben. I said, Ben, tell me where Credo coffee comes from. And he said, well, it comes from my credo. I said, your what? My personal credo about how I want to live my life is expressed in my coffee shop. And he and I went on to talk about how to live a life of purpose and meaning. And he talked about coffee, and he talked about community, and he talked about connecting your beliefs to the actions that you carry out on a daily basis. Your credo. Well, then he looked at me and said, well, what's your credo? Has anyone ever asked you that? Has anyone ever asked you a question and you know you don't have a great answer for it? David, what's your credo? So I started to answer, and I told him, I said, I kind of explained what I do for a living. I kind of tried to tell him some things, and I realized I had no good answer. Remember, I was just there to get a cup of coffee. A credo is a set of beliefs that drive your thoughts and behaviors. Beliefs that drive thoughts and behaviors. The word credo actually means believe. What Ben was actually asking me was, have you done the work to figure out how your beliefs connect to how you live your life on a daily basis? And are you doing it with meaning? Are you doing it with purpose? Or are you just kind of sailing along and just living your life and kind of picking it up as it goes? Now, what was interesting to me about this, the work I do professionally as a chief strategy officer, we think about these kind of things. We think about mission, vision, values. We think about how a company takes what it believes in and translates it into a market, translates it into a product, a set of services. And the ones who do it really well create very loyal followings. Think about the brands you like. Think about maybe the backpack you have. Think about the brands that you really connect with, beyond just the transaction. I'm not talking about where you maybe just shop, but the brands that actually you identify with. They're usually the brands that have translated their belief into a set of actions and way of being that aligns with who you think you are as a person. Let me give you two examples. One of my favorite brands is a company called REI. I heard a little cheer. Who was it? Who's the REI fan? REI is an outdoor company. It's a co-op. I actually joined it in the late 80s. The great thing about REI is that they send you a dividend check at the end of the year. If you shop there, they only keep the money they need and they return what they don't need to their customers or their members. They're known for being an outdoor, environmentally conscious company that is committed, almost kind of like your mother in elementary school when she would say, go outside and play. That's kind of the focus of REI, go outside and play. To the point that they've launched a campaign called Opt Outside. It is their answer to Black Friday. So Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, you know what I'm talking about, it's kind of the retail version of mixed martial arts, right? They've said, imagine a retail company saying, we're going to actually close that day. We're not going to be in business on that Friday. And matter of fact, we want our customers to go outside that day. That's aligning a belief system to actual actions and behaviors. Another one I like is Nike. Now, Nike has some great advertising in terms of just do it. More Nike love, okay? The other campaign I love that Nike did is that everyone's an athlete. Now, I've never been a great athlete in my life, so any company that comes along and says, I can be an athlete too, I'm kind of interested in. Nike's view is they want you and me to reach our highest potential. And the power of Nike goes beyond tennis shoes and shirts and those sorts of things. And they took a bold step not too long ago to connect what they believe in into actions, and they signed Colin Kaepernick. So why did they do that? Because they have a belief that your highest potential is expressed through how you experience your life, and they've acknowledged that not everybody experiences life the same way. Is it possible that women and people of color may have a different experience in society, and is it okay to talk about that? It's okay to talk about it. And Nike said, we're going to support that. Now, they made some enemies. They made some people unhappy. They didn't care. Now, there's the cynics who will say, no, they knew what they were doing, and they were just going to sell more tennis shoes. But not everyone weighed in on the argument. Nike expressed its intention, its beliefs translating through action. Right? That's what great brands do. Now, in my job, we're in the process at Adventist Health System of changing our brand and our identity, which has driven us back to kind of do some soul searching about, well, where do we come from and who are we? Well, Adventist healthcare is based on three basic ideas. Adventist healthcare is based on the idea that faith has an important role in providing wholeness to people. Think about it. You don't want to connect with a healthcare provider who is a pessimist. You want someone who is hopeful and who is optimistic and who has a general sense that there's a better day coming tomorrow. So the idea of faith becomes very important. There's also an important idea when John Harvey Kellogg joined the whites back in the late 1880s. He said, I'll join you on one condition. And that condition is simply this, that we will pursue the best of science. Yes, we believe in God, but we're also going to believe in science, and we're going to pursue the best solutions for people. Now, those two things are very well known for us, but as we dived back into our own intention, we realized there's this issue of social responsibility. If you're going to say you're going to create wholeness, that is also a social responsibility issue. So we went back and looked at our founders. We waded back into the idea of, this is John Harvey Kellogg. Little did he know of how fashionable he would be in 2018. He could have been in that coffee shop I went into. He has the right look. But these sentiments were held by our founders. The idea that it's not enough just to have Christian beliefs, but that you have to connect with your community and address the needs that matter to them most. It looks like issues of housing and issues of encouragement and support. Our founders also were very interested in these issues. And as we think about where we're going as an organization, what's our credo, what's our intent, what's our interest, issues like economic justice. Ellen White in the late 1800s, it's become fashionable to look down on the poor. Any insult shown to the poor is an insult to Christ. Those are our founders. On economic justice, think about racial justice. The idea of those who slight a brother because of his color are slighting Christ, Ellen White, 1901. Right? The idea that says gender, think about the timeliness of this comment, said in 1915, an injustice has been done to women who labor just as devotedly as their husband. Paying men and not their wives is not after the Lord's order. So when you think about organizationally what we're going through, the question Ben was asking me, I wanted to answer professionally because this is what I do in my job every day. We think about these kinds of issues. But that really wasn't what Ben was asking me. And so as we work through this process of letting this brand stand for something, we're taking those things into account. But like I said, Ben wasn't interested in that. He was asking me a personal question. And I would ask you the same personal question. What is your credo? What set of beliefs drive your thoughts and actions? And the important part of the definition is the last part. It's just not the ones that you accept from other people. So what does that mean? In this world, there's a number of people who would love to give you their beliefs. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. You go to any of those arenas, there are people who will tell you how to believe. From the well-intended all the way to the Kardashians, there are people who would like to give you their values. You may have other people in your life You may have professors, your peers, your pastors, your parents may want to say, I've got your beliefs for you. I just want to hand them to you. But the reality is this is work you have to do. In the same way Ben was asking me, how do your beliefs manifest themselves in your actions and behaviors? I didn't have a great answer. So that got me thinking about, well, how do you build a credo? And what is a credo? So we're going to talk just for a minute about personal credo and personal belief. Now, for me, it's organized around 3 inputs. Now, there's probably more than 3, but we're just going to focus on 3 quick ones today. This idea of what is your faith? What is your service? How are you going to spend your time in life serving others? And what is your sense of self? What is your faith? What is your service? And what is your sense of self? One of my favorite authors is this gentleman here, David Foster Wallace. He's famous for this saying, the idea that everybody worships. And what Wallace goes on to say is this: in day-to-day life, there's no such thing as atheism. No such thing as atheism. Everybody worships. The choice we have is, what will you worship? The choice you have is, what will you worship? And the compelling reason to choose God to worship is that pretty much anything else you worship will eat you alive. If you worship money, you will feel like you never have enough. If you worship intelligence and grades, you will feel inferior the next time a smart person comes along. And by the way, they always come along. Right? If you're worshiping your body, your sexual allure, you will always feel ugly. And that's before aging starts, by the way. Wallace says you will die 1,000 times as you age if you are worshiping your self-beauty. No, we all know this. This is not new learning. But what he really makes the point of is the idea of the whole trick is to keep the truth up in front of our daily consciousness. That's what Ben was talking about in that coffee shop. What is in the front of your mind, the daily consciousness you have about what you're worshiping and what you're thinking about? So that becomes one of the first elements as we think about developing credo. The real question is, do you feel like you're part of something bigger, or is this just about you? I had a boss, previous boss, he would ask us this question all the time: are you part of something that's bigger than yourself? Now that usually came up when we were in a business meeting and someone was trying to maybe take over or thinking their idea was the best. And he would just ask that question: is this about you, or are you part of something bigger? It's actually a spiritual question. If everybody worships, then the question is, what is it you're worshiping, and are you worshiping something that's bigger than yourself and has an idea for you? And if the answer is you are worshiping something bigger than yourself, what is that thing? What does that God see you as? One of my favorite pastors is Nadia Bowles-Weber.
We all know the voice of the accuser. The voice of shame in our heads, that's the accuser. The accusing voice that tells me that I am what I've done, or that who I am is wrong. The accuser is the voice that continually updates me on the current distance between my ideal self and my actual self, between my ideal personality and my actual personality, between my ideal weight, like my driver's license weight, and my actual weight. It makes us go to ridiculous lengths to try to prove it right or to try to prove it wrong. The accuser may try and convict us of the distance between our ideal self and our actual self, but the truth is, no one has ever become their ideal self. It's a moving target, a mirage of water on a desert road. The more we struggle to reach it, the thirstier we become, and yet we come no closer to actual water. And I'm not saying that God will get you to the mirage. What I'm saying is that the self who God loves, the self who God is in a relationship with, is your actual self. God isn't waiting for you to become thinner or heterosexual or married or celibate or more ladylike or less crazy or more spiritual or less of an alcoholic in order to love you. Also, I would argue, since your ideal self doesn't exist, it would follow that the you everyone in your life loves is your actual self too.
So Nadia is a pastor in Denver. Now I realize she may not look like your home pastor. Maybe she does. I don't know where you go to church. I love the thought, though, that says God isn't waiting for you to become something else in order to love you. As you think about your personal credo, and it starts with faith, what is your faith? Are you trying to earn your way into something? You have to perfect and improve yourself in some way? Or are you at peace with the idea of my credo starts with the fact I serve a God who actually loves me just like I am, and there's actually nothing I can really do to improve myself in order for him to love me? Now I get it, Nadia's a lot. Some of you may be more comfortable with Charlotte. Nadia is actually expressing a very old idea. Charlotte Elliott first expressed this idea in 1840. Charlotte was visited by her pastor. And her pastor asked her, Charlotte, are you a believer? Are you at peace with your life? And she resented the question. She was upset and she threw the pastor out of her house. And then a couple days later, upon reflection, she started to think, I probably made a mistake. And she realized, I do want to improve my life and I do want to turn my life over to God. And so she called the pastor and said, I tell you what, I'm going to join the church, but before I do that, I need to clean myself up. I need to improve myself to make myself worthy to become part of your church. And her pastor wisely said, Charlotte, come just as you are. She went on to write that song, Just As I Am. Not waiting not to rid my soul of one dark blot. Now that's 1840s language. I get it. It sounds awkward. It's the same thing Nadia is saying. It's the same thing people understand. You serve a God who actually accepts you just like you are. And so as you think through your credo, then what does that activate in you? If he accepts me like I am, maybe then I should be accepting you like you are. You know, when you think about what it means to really speak into your faith, this came alive for me in May of 2008. I saw this headline in the Adventist World magazine. 5 things the world needs to know about us. It was an article written by our then GC president, Jan Paulsen. I miss Jan Paulsen. He had a very different way of thinking about what it meant to be an Adventist. And what he said was, when he travels around the world, the thing that would break his heart is he would meet people on planes and they would say, what do you do? And he'd say, well, I'm president of the Worldwide Adventist Church. And they would say, who are Adventists? And he said, you know, for a church that's an evangelical church that believes in spreading a message, it's not good if you're anonymous. You kind of get that? If your whole thing is outward facing but nobody knows you, you're kind of failing at the most basic level. And he said there's 5 things we need to be known for. And he said the number one thing is we need to be relevant in our communities and speak into the injustice of the communities in which we live. And we need to find ourselves on the front line of those communities. Right? This is no longer about being a people that are off in a corner with a peculiar set of beliefs. It's about being connected and relevant in real ways to those people we live by and connect with. So when you think about a faith system, if there is something bigger than you, and that thing accepts you as you are, and it activates this kind of action in you, you're well on your way to your credo. The second component we work on is service. How will you spend your life? Now, you're here in college. You're you're studying. You're trying to get through your coursework, all for a payoff, right? There's something at the end. You're going to go do a job. You're going to do work. Well, there's 2 things to know about work. This is one of my favorite books. As you go through life, I would recommend keep some books you like, keep them with you. This is one for me called The Crucible of Work, written by Dr. Sandy Shugart. He's a college president. And he says there's 2 truths about work that you have to know. The first we learn in Genesis 3:17, which is when Adam and Eve fell, the curse they experienced was not work. The curse they experienced was meaningless work. When you look at Genesis 3:17, what it specifically talks about is, because you've eaten of the tree from which I commanded you not to eat, cursed is the ground because of you. Through toil you will eat. Work is a blessing. Work was set up at the foundation of the earth to be meaningful for people. Through sin, it became meaningless when it becomes toil. The other thing he talks about, and this is a little bit of a hard thing to hear, that your work forms you more than you form it. Now, I realize that's not a popular thing to say, because normally when we're talking, we should be working to conquer the world. We can be the next Steve Jobs. We can be the change in the world we want to be. What Sandy says is the reality is when you get into the work world, your work will form you more than you form it. Meaning that you have to put yourself in a place where that formation is helpful to you, is constructive to you, and is aligned to your intention. One of the best examples I've seen of this, now we're going to make a deal right now. We're going to talk about Dave Chappelle, but no one's going to go home and tell their parents we use Dave Chappelle in assembly, okay? Can we have that agreement right now? Dave Chappelle taught us something very important. And by the way, I'm not endorsing Dave Chappelle. I wouldn't recommend you watch his stuff, but he does have some very funny stuff. 2005, peak of his success, he is on top of the world. He's offered a, hang with me, $50 million contract for 2 years of work. And he walks away. Now, have you ever quit a job? Have you ever walked away from a job? Have you ever walked away from a job that was going to pay you $50 million in the next 2 years? He did. Because he understood this very well, that he was being deformed by his work. Matter of fact, let me just let you hear him tell it directly.
How old were you when you made your first TV development deal?
19. My mother and my grandmother were freaked out. You know, I was the first person in my family not to go to college that had not been a slave.
Right.
So I was really breaking from tradition, and it was like a graduation lunch we were having, and they had my dad come and talk to me, and my dad takes me outside, and he's like, listen, and this is some advice that applies to all you acting students. He says, to be an actor is a lonely life. Everybody wants to make it, and you might not make it. And I said to my dad, well, that depends on what making it is, Dad. He was a smart kid.
Yeah.
It depends on what making it is, Dad. He says, what do you mean? I said, well, you're a teacher. I said, if I can make a teacher salary doing comedy, I think that's better than being a teacher. And he started laughing. He said, if you keep that attitude, I think you should go. He said, but name your price in the beginning. If it ever gets more expensive than the price you name, get out of there. Mm-hmm. Thus, Africa.
Name your price. And if it ever gets more expensive than that, get out of there. He had $50 million. The price was more expensive than that. He deeply understood what it means to be deformed by your work. So as you think about credo, you think about your intention and how that translates into behavior and action. That's the strength of knowing your intention. It allows you to walk away from $50 million. Listen to his voice a little more. I would go to the work on the show and feel awful. I felt like a prostitute. I would think, I feel so bad. Why do I keep coming to this place? The hardest thing to do is be true to yourself, especially when everyone is watching. What you choose to do in terms of service to the world, if it's not motivated by your credo, your intention, and how you want to manifest yourself in the world, you come to that crisis point. And $50 million is not enough to be working in the wrong spot. So as you think about your credo, it's about faith, it's about the work that you do. The last piece of it is about yourself, how you experience the world. And we could go 100 different directions. I only want to make one point right here. I came across this term not too long ago, and it didn't make sense to me. These are two opposite words, generous orthodoxy. They're actually not, they shouldn't be used in the same sentence. They mean the opposite thing. Generous meaning I'm open, I'm expansive, I'm giving, I'm connecting, I'm open to different things. Orthodoxy mean no, it's a set of rules, it's codified. I know how this is supposed to work. You put the two together and you have a generous orthodoxy? It doesn't make sense. I first heard it from Malcolm Gladwell. He has a great podcast called Revisionist History if you're ever looking for a good podcast. And he talked about this idea that credo or belief allows you to live in this space of having convictions but yet being open to new learning. It says this. What does it mean? We stand up for our convictions, but we refuse to draw battle lines. We practice generous virtues, searching for truth together, upholding Christ as the center of our faith, preserving unity and the gospel's gracious character. It means creating space for my beliefs to be in context with your beliefs, and I don't have to be at war with you if you believe something different. Now, I got to tell you, the adult world is failing at this masterfully right now. This idea that if you disagree with me, if I somehow think women should be ordained and you don't, somehow that's a time to vilify one another. And you can see the list of things that could help build on that. This idea that it's okay to have your own core convictions, but it's also okay for someone else to have something different, and we can be in harmony together around that. We can be orthodox and generous at the same time. Let me read you one more thing from that Jan Paulson article back in 2008. He said this: let's demonstrate in the public square how the truths we hold impact our lives. Let's talk about advocacy. We are freedom fighters in the truest sense, working not only for those who share our point of view, but for everyone regardless of their beliefs. When you have a strong credo, and you have a faith in a God that is expansive and open and accepting you as you are, and you've put yourself in a place of service that's authentic to the expression of your intentions, and you have a belief system in self that says, I'm confident enough in what I believe that I can allow you to believe what you believe, and we can work together, you're off to a great start. So we're back to our model. 3 touch points. Now, I realize you have a lot to do, and I realize the majority of you won't go home and write a new credo today, but I just ask you to start to think about, how do your beliefs connect to your intentions? How do your belief connect to your actions and your behaviors? How does what you believe actually manifest itself in what you're going to do tomorrow? Well, let's go back to Ben. So Ben is an interesting guy. Ben owns a coffee shop, as you know. Ben runs a program called Rally Makers, where he basically runs a social entrepreneur version of Shark Tank. He finds nonprofit organizations that are looking to solve problems in the community and finds funding for them. People come and pitch their ideas, and he aligns them with funders. He's a conduit for critical conversations in the community. He specifically positioned his church east of Division Street. Now, if you're not from Orlando, I know that means nothing. In Orlando, there's a street called Division Street. It's called Division Street because back in the day, if you were African American, that was the dividing line. You could not live west of Division Street. Ben said, I'm going east of Division Street. He's a conduit for critical conversations, and it's because of his credo. Ben's actually a pastor. He has a church of 300 people. But he realized being a pastor means less about meeting in places like this and more about coffee shops and Shark Tanks and community-based conversations. Let me share with you his credo. This is literally his credo. In that coffee shop that day, he sat down with me and said, yeah, I'll tell you exactly why I do what I do. Life is worth living. I refuse to merely exist. Highly intentional about what I'm going to do in my life. I refuse to merely exist. I pursue a life of meaning and purpose, fulfillment and joy. meaning that my service is going to relate to generating meaning, purpose, fulfillment, and joy. The world is not as it ought to be, neither is my city, neither am I. Yet I reject apathy and despair. The self-awareness of Ben to be able to say, my city's not great, but you know what, I'm not either. I've got work to do on me as a person, but I'm not going to sink into apathy and quit on things. That's what a credo can do for you. It calls you to action, even in the face of imperfection. I engage the world, my city, myself, to make an impact for good. I am not alone. I press through narcissism, isolation, self-sufficiency, striving to live in authentic community. So Ben's coffee shop made a lot more sense to me. Actually, he's reduced his credo to 3 words: meaning, impact, and community. When you start from a foundation that's grounded in a credo, your beliefs convert into meaningful action that will have impact for those in your community. Thanks for your time today. Thanks.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate that. We've got an assignment.